Have you ever felt the quiet power in someone who doesn't need to speak to shift a room? They don't argue, they don't chase, they don't explain, they simply pull back and suddenly the whole atmosphere begins to change. People notice, they wonder, they feel the absence. Now imagine if you did that. If instead of reacting, you paused. If instead of answering right away, you chose silence. If instead of exploding, you simply stepped back. Do you know what would happen? The balance would shift. Because the moment you stop being predictable, emotionally available, and easily triggered, everything around you begins to adjust. People get confused because they can no longer control you through your reactions. They realize they never really knew you at all. Carl Jung once said that the things that irritate us in others can teach us something about ourselves. And when you become less accessible, pay attention to who gets irritated, who tries to poke at you, who pushes for a reaction. These are the people most invested in keeping you reactive because they need you to play the role. You keep giving your energy away just to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to hold on to people who were never really with you in the first place. And with every forced smile, every automatic yes, every emotional reply, you're pouring pieces of yourself into people who don't even notice. No wonder you feel drained, empty, disconnected, because you are too available for those who wouldn't last a minute in your silence. But this message is not about walking away from the world. It's about walking back to yourself. It's about what Jung called individuation, the path to becoming whole. And that journey starts when you learn the strength of silence. When you understand that pulling back is not weakness, but power. That not reacting is not fear, but clarity. So let me ask you right now, how long will you let others pull your emotional strings? How long will you dance every time someone touches your wound? Maybe it's time to cut those strings. Maybe it's time to disappear from their emotional radar, to stop being so easily understood, because when people can no longer read your reactions, they start to question their own. From a young age, you were trained to believe that your worth comes from being available, from always being there, from always replying, from always saying yes. But here's the truth. Being endlessly available isn't noble. It's exhausting. It's a silent prison. And while you believe that this constant presence will make others stay, it only makes them see you as a tool. People don't cherish what they can access too easily. They start to use you as a source of comfort, distraction, validation. And once they're done, they walk away until the next time they need you. And still you don't realize you're chasing approval in a cycle that only drains you. Jung talked about the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted and loved. And it's that mask that keeps you overexposed. You say yes when you're hurting. You reply when you're exhausted. You explain yourself like you owe someone an answer. And each time you do that, you shrink just a little bit more. You vanish from your own life. Because being constantly present for others is the same as being absent from yourself. It's not about being cold. It's about being conscious. It's about recognizing that your energy is not limitless, that every emotional reaction costs something, that every minute of your presence is an offering, and not everyone deserves it. Some people only want your light when it brightens their darkness. And when you dim that light, they say you've changed. They say you've become distant, not because it's wrong, but because it no longer benefits them. The more available you are, the less value people place on you, because emotional abundance becomes emotional clutter. No one respects what they don't earn. So ask yourself, who actually deserves your attention? Who truly earns your presence? And more importantly, who deserves the power of your absence? But let's go even deeper. Why do you keep reacting? Why do you give in to every demand? Why do you explain yourself again and again? Jung called it psychic energy. Your mind is not a machine, it's a system. And every thought, every emotion, Every action drains a part of your energy. Now ask yourself, are you choosing where it goes? Or are you letting the world decide that for you? Every time you defend yourself against something that didn't even deserve a reply, every time you try to prove a point in an argument that leads nowhere, every time you stay in conversations that only drain you, you are bleeding energy. And the people around you can feel that. They can sense your exhaustion. And if they are manipulators, they will use it. Jung said that a healthy mind knows how to keep energy within. This means learning to say no without guilt, to remain silent without fear, to act only when it serves your growth. Because the real strength is not in reacting, it's in choosing. But you can only choose when you know yourself, when you understand your own emotional triggers. How many nights have you lost sleep replaying something someone said? How much time have you spent trying to fix what was never yours to fix? That's energy gone, wasted. Your thoughts become haunted. Your emotions become tangled. You carry burdens that were never yours because you haven't learned to protect your energy. When your energy is protected, you become magnetic. You walk into a space and your presence speaks before you do. But when your energy is scattered, you become invisible, forgettable, emotionally fragile. So begin watching yourself. Notice what makes you snap. What steals your calm? That's where your boundaries need to rise. Not because you're becoming distant, but because you're becoming deliberate. Jung said, when you stop feeding people's projections, they panic. And that's the dark side of all this silent manipulation. There are people who feed on your reactions. They don't scream, they don't demand, they just press your emotional buttons and wait for the performance. And you give it every time. But when you don't react, the game ends when you say nothing, when you walk away, when you protect your peace. They're left staring at their own reflection, and most people can't handle that because they were using you as a distraction from themselves. That's why your unavailability feels threatening. That's why your silence feels like an attack. It's not because you're wrong, it's because you're no longer useful, because they have to face their emptiness without your energy to fill it. Jung once said, "We don't become whole by chasing light. We become whole by turning and facing the dark." And your silence, your withdrawal, your refusal to engage, it forces others to meet their own darkness, but it also forces you to meet your own strength. Are you ready for that? Ready to be misunderstood? Ready to be seen as distant, as selfish, as changed, just because you finally chose yourself? Because that's where the power begins. And in the next part, you'll understand why silence isn't weakness. It's the most powerful act of self-possession. It's the language of the ones who have nothing left to prove. Keep going. You're becoming rare, and rare things are never easily understood. Thank you for walking this path of awareness with me. Your presence means more than you know. If this message touched something deep inside, you don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps spread the light. See you in the next one.